Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video is going to be all about brakes. Specifically, the brakes on my rear Dana 44. So I noticed the other day, after I swapped this Dana 44 in, that my parking brake was not working at all. It wasn't holding the Jeep. So once I tore in there, I noticed that my brake shoes, the parking brake shoes, were just missing their pads altogether. They were long gone. So while I was down there, I decided I'm going to swap out the rear calipers on both sides and the brake pads, and also do the brake shoes and hardware for the parking brake. So if you find the video helpful, please think about subscribing to the channel. I do all kinds of Jeep TJ content. I'm doing multiple things right now. I'm going to replace my brake pads, my caliper, and the brake shoes for the parking brake. So if you're just here for one of those things, I'll try and explain it so you don't end up doing things you don't need to do. If you're replacing the caliper, like I am, you're going to want to remove this one 9/16 bolt. It'll take the brake line off, and then you will remove these two 1/2-inch bolts, and that will let you take the caliper off. If you are just planning on doing the pads, you do not need to remove the brake line. So you can leave that on, and you can just remove either both of these 1/2-inch bolts or loosen the top one and then remove the bottom one, and you can tilt the caliper up and get to the pads that way. It's still usually a little easier to just take them both off so you can totally manipulate the caliper. And finally, if you're just here to do the parking brake shoes, then again, you can leave the brake line alone and leave it attached to the caliper, and then just remove both of these 1/2-inch bolts to remove the caliper off of the rotor, and then you can pull the rotor off to get to those shoes. Also, if you are removing the brake line, I would recommend having something to catch the brake fluid because it will be leaking out. So I have my caliper removed, and I'm kind of draining it down there. It kind of holds a little bit of fluid. And now I have my rotor removed too. And as you can see, these are what's left of my old parking brake shoes. There's no pad left on them at all, and it is very dirty in there. So next I'm going to kind of get these all unhooked, get the springs undone, and then spray everything down with brake cleaner. I'll do my best with this tight space I have to show you how to pull these old pads off. You want to start with the outside one, not the one that actually goes into the piston. And to do this one, you've got these clips on the back, and you just want to get a screwdriver, a flathead in there, pry up on that. There we go. You kind of have these little holes where it seats, so when you pry up, if you can get your screwdriver in that hole, it'll hook and help you push it off. Okay, so you got that one off. And then the other one is pretty easy. It's just kind of held into the piston with those little metal clips, so you can just push down and pull it out. My pads on this side actually aren't that bad, but I'm just going to go ahead and replace them. The other side was a little worse, but yeah, I don't know, I already bought them, so I'm just going to stick them on. This next part, to get the actual shoes off for the parking brake, is going to be kind of hard to show you with this blocking it. But if you can see here, there is a pin that sticks through the back, and then this metal clip that you can kind of push down on that holds the brake pad or the brake shoe in place. So if you can depress on this and push this pin up into this opening, that clip will no longer keep pressure on it, and then you can push the pin out of the back side. Right in this hole is where that pin is, so while you're trying to unclip it from the other side, you're going to want to stick a finger in here to hold it steady so you can unclip it. Alright, just to show you guys on the side I've already taken off, this is that pin I'm talking about. It kind of looks like a nail. It has a flat head on one side. This sticks through the back of that dust shield. Then it comes through the brake shoe, and then this metal clip is over it like this, and then it holds constant tension on it and holds it in place. So all you have to do is hold the back of that flathead of the pin so it can't just fall back and forth, and then you will push down on this and push the head of it up to the opening, and then you can just slide it out like that. and then that'll release the bottom of that brake shoe a little bit. And once you do both sides, you can work them left and right so you can get to the springs to unhook the springs. So I'll do my best to just show you how I'm going to unclip it. It's a little bit of a struggle, but it's not too bad. Just flathead screwdriver and you can get it done. So I'm holding on to the back of that pin to keep it from moving. Just going to depress this clip a little bit, try and get the dirt and rust off of it. There we go. So now I'm going to do the other side. Now I'll kind of hold you real quick so you can see what I was talking about. With both of those pins out, you can now wiggle the brake shoes back and forth. And those are those clips that just fell out. And once you have these able to wiggle, you have a spring on the top and the bottom. So if you push it out to one side, you can get access to that spring. It's hard to see because mine is really dirty, but this is the spring right there, and it goes into this hole. So all you have to do is pry the spring out of the hole, and then the bottom are separated, and then you can do the same thing on the top. It's actually kind of easier, I think, to do it on the other side with this bigger section without the actual coiled spring part in the way. So I'll go ahead and set you up and pull those out. So that is the parking brake shoes off now. So I've got everything off. The next thing I'm gonna do is spray it all down with brake cleaner, just get all this dirt and grime off. So for the parking brake on this Dana 44, you just have 2 springs. So it's a parking brake kit if you want to replace it. I usually do anytime I get stuff like this. I replace the hardware and the springs. So you have a top and bottom spring, you have the 2 pins and the 2 clips, and then you have a self-adjuster, which these self-adjusters are the big thing. This is probably pretty seized up. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. So this sits on the bottom of the brake shoes, and you can see where it has little like mouths on both sides to bite it. And then this kind of star part here is supposed to spin freely from this threaded piece, and then it just kind of slides in this sleeve. So as it self-adjusts, it should be able to spread the brakes out farther. So as the pads wear down, it'll push them out farther. So when you pull the cable, it'll still lock up the caliper for you. Oh. It's already looking a lot cleaner. Obviously, brake cleaner doesn't clean up rust or anything like that. It just gets all the dirt and grime off, and then it dries very quickly without leaving any oily residue behind, because you don't want any oils on your brakes, because then your brakes won't work. So my next step is I have to run back up to O'Reilly's and drop that off to get $30 back as a core charge. I have to return the hardware kit they gave me for the parking brake, because they gave me a drum brake hardware kit and not the parking brake for disc brakes. So I have to take that back and get my money back. And then they couldn't find anything in their system for the parking brake. So I just Googled it, found it at Advanced and AutoZone, called AutoZone. They didn't have it in stock. It would take like a month or something to get it. They had a few stores that are not close to me. And then I called Advanced and they have one in stock. So I'm gonna make a nice waste of time, run back up to one auto parts store to return some stuff, and then go to another one to get the piece I need. So I'll be back in just a minute. Blink of an eye for you guys, a huge waste of time and gas for me. So after bouncing around between O'Reilly's, AutoZone, and Advanced, I finally found this at Advanced. It is the brake hardware kit. That is the part number right there in case you guys need it too. And there's all the hardware for this side. It's got everything I need, so I'm pretty happy. I think it was about $28 or something like that. More expensive than what everything was at the other stores, but you know, they had it and it was only like $10 more, so I'm pretty happy. These are my brake shoes. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the brake shoes and then we can start putting them on there. It is a pain with this axle in the way, but it can be done. I just did the other side. It's gonna be a little hard to show you guys, but I'll tell you everything you should do beforehand, and then you can watch me struggle and be sad for a little while, and maybe it'll help you have a tip, or you can try and pull your axle out and do it. Yeah, I don't know, I just don't feel like pulling the axle. So this is how the brake shoes are oriented. This one will go like this, and then the other one will be the reverse. It'll be facing like that, with the round holes on top and that big oval hole at the bottom. The oval hole is where that retainer pin sticks through, and then the round hole at the top is where the spring will hook, and then you have this kind of little half round hole at the bottom. That's where the other spring will hook. So it'll stick up here like this, and the other one will be on the other side, and that is where they seat, and you'll have to fight with the springs and kind of spread them apart. It's not the most fun thing. Like I said, it'd be easier if you pull this out, but I just don't want to deal with it. So if you do, that'll make your life easier, but the rest of this will still apply whether this is in your way or not. So I'm going to really quickly show you how everything will go on there, and then it'll be easier for you to kind of visualize instead of my hands being in the way while I'm trying to put mine on there. So keep in mind there will be something that goes in between these, top and bottom, but this will just give you an idea where the springs go. So you will take this purple spring, or I suppose yours could be a different color. This is the shape of the spring that goes up top. You will take this end, hook it in on the left side, and then this side hooks right in there. And you have to think, I'm doing the driver's side now, so when you do the other side, I believe the spring actually is backwards, where on the driver's side it faces forward, on the passenger side it'll face to the rear. The important part is that you get this dip that goes down like that. You don't want that going up. So then next you have this white spring. This one's pretty simple and light. It hooks down at the bottom here in those little half circles like that. Then you have these three pieces for your self-adjuster. I got white lithium grease with mine. I like to put white lithium grease on the threads and a little bit inside the sleeve. I'm not going to do that for this demonstration because I don't want to get it all over my fingers right now. But essentially you have this star that screws onto here, and you'll pretty much want it all the way to the end, because as your brakes wear, it'll end up farther down here, which will spread the brakes farther apart. And then once you have it there, it just slides in there. Nothing holds it in there except for pressure. It'll be between these two. I will remove the spring to show you how it goes, but it hooks just right in here. Like that. And then that spring you will stretch over there, and it'll keep pressure and keep it in place. And then when you're putting these on there, you can adjust this in and out a little bit. You'll probably have to take it pretty much all the way in at some point to get the rotor back over top of these. Another thing is there's actually a hole on the back of the brake shield with a little rubber boot like this. It actually came with new ones. You pop these out and you can fit a screwdriver in to adjust this like that. It's slow and tedious, but it is a way to adjust it without taking everything off to get into this. This is that hole I was just talking about. You will be able to pop out the rubber boot like I already have, and then you can get to the back side from laying underneath your Jeep to adjust it when you have your tire and everything on. So I'm just going to start with the purple spring hooked on at the top, and then I'm just going to kind of force it into position. Not really.
You've been working hard.
Barely.
Has it been frustrating?
Oh yeah.
No.
Always is.
Yeah, it took you a while. Did you have to go a ways to get it?
Kinda. It wasn't too far, but I just had to go a couple different places and return the junk they gave me.
Yes. So this has not been a fun day, huh?
It never is.
You know, that's probably true. As much as you've done, you probably just get used to it, don't you?
Yeah. Just live my life in rage.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to put in this self-adjuster. You can kind of see where the hole is. You want the self-adjuster going this way. That way it's actually in place where you, if you stick the screwdriver through, you can reach it. There we go. So that's about where they'll sit. So you can see that actual wheel is right there in front of the hole. That's what you want. On the other side, I think it's backwards, but again, just make sure that wheel is in front of the hole. So next you take the white spring, or if it's a different color, the spring looks like this. And this is where you stick it in those little half moon holes. So I'm gonna hook one. I'm gonna use some needle nose pliers to grab on the other side and drag it into place while holding on to the brake shoe. Okay, that's in place. Now I'm just gonna tuck that in a little bit better. And there you go. So that's most of it done. Now comes the hard part, which is trying to get those pins in place while everything's under spring tension like this. Okay, so take one of the pins, one of the clips, and have a flathead screwdriver or two ready, and be prepared to smash your fingers and rub them a little raw and not have a whole lot of fun. It's really just going to be hard to show any of this, but I'll do my best. It's pretty simple what you're doing. Putting the pin through the back, holding it on the back, while kind of keeping this out of the way and trying to depress that spring clip over it and spin it. Honestly, if I had a third hand, this would be done in seconds, but I'm stuck with these two useless ones, and it's going to take me a couple minutes. That one was way easier than the other side, and I think it'll probably be more of a struggle on this side now that that one's locked in place. Boy, that's so hard. Alright, that one's done too. That sucked. So with that done, you're now ready to put back on your rotor. So if you're having trouble getting the rotor back on, you want to make sure your brake shoes are kind of up and pushed in. There's a little lip in there, and sometimes they get stuck on the outside, so you want to pull them out and push them up and make sure they're kind of sitting on top of that lip. And then also you can adjust that adjuster in as much as possible, and that'll make it smaller so the brake shoes sit even closer together, and then you should be able to get that on with a light amount of force. So that'll be it for doing the parking brakes. So if that's all you needed to see, that part's done. Obviously you want to do that for the other side as well. So now we'll go ahead and move on to replacing the caliper and the brake shoes. Also, real quick, I didn't think to mention it earlier, but if you have a bunch of grooves or gouges in your rotor, you'll want to replace that as well. Mine's pretty good, so I'm not going to bother doing it. But as you saw, I just had it off and I put it back on, so that is all there is to replacing it. You just take it off, put a new one on. Here's my pretty new caliper. You're going to have 2 bolts in there, or usually they're in there, and you'll want those greased with white lithium grease. Usually they come greased, but if not, just smear some grease on there. And then it also came with these little metal shims, and I'll show you where those go. Okay, so here are my new brake shoes. This one is the one that goes inside the piston, so you'll put this one on first. Just like that. And then this one is the one that goes on the outside, and you'll just slide this one over. And it'll clip into place and hold itself in there. So let's go ahead and stick this on the Jeep. Okay, I made a mistake, so this is Justin from the future. I'm gonna cut this back in to before I put all this on, so don't worry, you'll still see how this goes. I just forgot to put these little metal shims on, so I'm gonna pull this back off real quick and show you where the shims go, and then I'll get you back into order. So like I said, I kind of messed up and forgot to put the shims on. So this little metal shim, you stick right up top here. Give it a good squeeze into place and it'll hold itself there. And then I'm going to pop off this bottom one and replace it with a new one. So I'm not totally sure the purpose of these, but my guess is these are meant to be a wearable part. So you put these on there, and any rubbing that occurs, it'll wear this piece that gets replaced away before it'll wear away anything permanent. Okay, so you got the shims on there, and I'm going to jump you guys back into time so you can do it in the right order. So if you look at the brakes, you'll notice that this brake is the only one that kind of has 2 ears that would kind of lock into place. So you're going to make sure that one goes on first, and then the bottom just has these little ears on the back, so it can go like this and slide into place. These little guys, you're going to want to pull the bolts out, and you can see all the white lithium grease I stuffed on there, and then push these in like that and give you the room to actually be able to slide it in place. Do it on top and bottom. These 2 bolts, you do not tighten down very tight. I'm not positive what the exact torque specs are. I recommend you look those up and torque them to spec if you have a torque wrench. And then it comes with a new bolt for the brake line, and it comes with 2 more of those washers on there. So just go ahead and unscrew this out and keep track of the washers. So take 1 washer off and leave 1 on. Take your brake line, stick that bolt through the brake line. Take your washer, stick it on the other side. So you should have 1 on each side of this, and then start to bolt this back in. There we go. Okay, other than tossing the tires back on, that pretty much completes the brake job. Whatever you do, don't forget to bleed your brakes. You had your brake lines disconnected. They need bled before you drive your vehicle. Hopefully some or all of this video was helpful if you guys are doing exactly what I was doing. If so, and you have more you want to do to your Jeep, go check out my other videos. I have a lot of do-it-yourself videos for Jeep TJs. I've even got some off-roading footage, a lot of fun stuff on there. So think about subscribing and watch the other content.